This conference will now be recorded.
Here we go. All right, so we are, oops, just got a little ahead of myself there. So we're ready to get started. Welcome everybody. This is our January 19 or 2020. I see I put a 19.
Uh-oh.
Bad. Monica, you're supposed to catch that. Fix that
I was
later.
I was reviewing it on my phone, so that with no glasses.
That's not reviewing. Any rate, so whatever day is 2020. And we're gonna be talking about the point ball tonight. And what I was thinking we do, we all know that the point ball has so much wrapped up in it. There's a lot of things
Hmm.
that go on. And you, oh, sorry, I just thought I'd show everybody the whole thing all at once. Um, but what we thought, we've got, I think Monica and I worked out 5 subjects as kind of discussion starters. I'll give you a little rundown what they are, and then we'll take them one by one. And we can all chime in, talk about the different things, ask any questions as we go on each of these points. And of course, at the end, we almost always have time. So if you have questions about other things about the point ball, or even questions about anything, we'll throw it open to open question time for Treibball. So as we get started, like I said, we had 5 things that we picked out that we definitely want to hit on tonight. Um, and sort of as topics. The first is that I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to move all of you people to the other side of the screen. Yeah. First is that the dog finds the correct position when we send them out versus the handler cues to reposition. A lot of Some of us are working on an idea when we send the dog, they should just go out and they should find the spot. And some of us fall in the category of if they're not quite right, we reposition or try to get them to fix it. So we're going to talk about that some. Um, some of us use a specific cue for that initial send. So when we send them out for that initial formation, when we want that point ball, we have a cue that's the only time we use it, versus how we send them out when the balls are scattered on the field. Um, and of course, we always have that question about how do we add distance to that initial send. That's a that tends to hit everybody at some point. How do we get that distance? Finding that point ball in any formation. As we go through the different levels, some of the dogs will do just fine with the novice level formations, and then when we get up to masters, it falls apart. They act
Hmm.
like they can't find. Yeah, they can't find it anymore. So we want to be able to find that point ball in any formation. And then the last one, do you document your training so you can tell what you're doing as you go? So that's what we're kind of our plan, and then we'll take it from there. Um, Maybe if my computer plays. All right. So first thing, um, finding that point ball position. Who's responsible? Is it us with our big brains, or is it the dog's job? And when I ask that question, but the reality is it's kind of a trick question, because when we are training that dog, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to train that dog to know where to go. And then once we have that dog well trained, then it becomes the dog's responsibility to find that place. And so that's a little bit of a something we have to work out with ourselves. Where are we in the progression? Are we training? Or are we at the point where we have a dog who should really know? So one of the things we came up with is when we're going through and training that dog to know exactly where to go. As and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Carolyn, Monica, and all we all use and have our students use a map to train that position, that very specific place. I think every one of us, that's our recommendation, is the mat's one of the best tools we have for that. Some of us really focus on having that mat cut to the size of the dog, especially when we have those little dogs and they have those little bitty balls. and we have a mat that's 2 foot by 2 foot, that mat's not telling them much other than half the ball. It's not really telling them a really precise place. So a lot of us recommend cutting that mat to the size of the dog. And then we go through a fading process when we think the dog has got that position, so that we use that mat to train it, and then we fade that mat out. And I think Carolyn, Monica, and I have all talked about at some point, how do we go about fading? And often people talk about fading as they just keep cutting the size of the mat down for a lot of behaviors. But I think we work more on a fading process that runs more when the dog's looking rather successful. We'll take the mat away for a repetition, then we might put it right back, and then we'll fade it out for a couple repetitions, then put it back. So we fade it by taking it out for more repetitions until the dog is confident. And I don't know, Monica, Carolyn, does that add up? I didn't make something up and add something to you?
No.
Okay. I was pretty sure we were all kind of on that same page. So we find that to be one of the best ways for training that dog exactly where we want them to go with the formation. As we go through and we're training, we all really want people to watch their body position. We have probably all found ourselves guilty, especially in the beginning. We're trying to teach that dog where to go, and our body position shifts, and suddenly the dog's on the mat behind the formation, but we've shifted, and now we're not in position anymore. So we've given a really unclear message to the dog. And we also recommend watching your reward hand and the placement of the cookies, if that's what you're using. I've had people, they very consistently reward with the right hand, and then it's as they go down what they find is the dog tends to drift to the human's right side of the ball. And they're constantly putting the dog back, and it's like, well, the dog is doing a very natural thing. They're predicting you're just going to reward with the right hand. So the dog's not doing anything wrong. They're playing the game the way they see it. And then also making sure if we're giving cookies, we're rewarding behind the ball instead of bringing the dog around. So again, dog's not getting confused. We also emphasize, and again, this is one I think we've all talked about. What do we want behind the ball? A sit or a stand or a down? But it always comes up. I know where I am, I do not have a specific preferred position unless it's something special for the dog. It might be I have a dog who's very high strung and insistent on pushing, and so then I might emphasize a sit or down. But with an elderly dog, I am not going to try to force them into a sit or a down because it might be uncomfortable. So again, Carolyn, Monica, are you?
Absolutely agree. Yeah. Depends on the dog.
Okay. Depends on the dog. I know a lot of people think that they have to have one thing or other, and they really don't. It's what's right for your dog.
Yeah.
And then what always comes up is what happens when the dog gets the wrong spot. We have all come up there. We've sent the dog out. We think it's going well, and maybe they're just off a little bit, or they've missed it just a little bit, and we start gambling. It's like, oh, I think they'll bring the point ball. And what happens if we allow them to bring that point ball? We basically reinforce that, oh yeah, that position's fine. You can be there. Or we may say, we'll go ahead and give that push cue, and instead we don't get the point ball. Once again, we've still reinforced that they've probably done the right thing. So one thing is if the dog gets the wrong spot, certainly don't give that push cue. That just gives the dog a really clear message that it was fine. In my area, we used to let people reposition the dog, the dog's off just a little, or maybe they missed and they went to one of the other balls, and they'll reposition. Oh, no. Oh, wait, come on. Or fix it. I hear that a lot. I'd hear somebody go, dog would be off, and they go, fix it. Like, oh, I'm sorry, that's not a cue. Your dog doesn't know what that means. Or they do, away, come on, away, or come on. And of course, the dog would just swing all the way back around to the other side of the pack of balls. So we have gone to no repositioning. If your dog is missing the placement, we need to step that training back. I'll give them, if your dog misses twice, we need to find a way to make it easier. We need to step in closer. We need to bring the mat back. We've got to do something to get them back on track instead of letting them keep missing that spot. So if they go to the wrong place, our recommendation is, call them back and then send again. If they miss again, then find a way to take it back in the training. Okay, so I just ran through a bunch of stuff about training that whole point ball and who's responsible. I'll first throw it, Carolyn, Monica, do you want to add anything, change anything, do anything differently?
Well, I was wanting to maybe share a story about JoJo losing it. Is this a good time to do it?
You betcha.
Because she did great with novice and intermediate, and we were feeling really good. And when it was time to switch to advanced was when things fell apart. And maybe actually this goes in a later spot when we talk about changing the formation. So, but what I didn't do was I did not bring back the mat when I changed the formation. I guess looking at all of this, that was my biggest, I brought it in closer. I did that, but I didn't bring back the mat, and I wasn't consistent with wrong spot. Now, I need to rethink the training. I just kept repositioning, and what happened was just year after year of increasing frustration. That's my sad story.
Lots of grass eating.
So for her, stress sign is grass eating. And so I thought, God, she just loves the grass now. She loves it more. And not understanding that it was a stress sign. So.
You have the Treibball field with the best grass on the planet. Yeah, and that's what Monica and I mentioned. Oh yeah, we didn't really have anything specific in here. Not only does the dog get the correct spot as we're going through the training, but do they do it confidently? And that can look very different depending on the dog. We've got one it's a northern breed, Sammy. In fact, we got two of them now. And if they're not confident, it comes with a whole lot of barking. And there's a real tendency to say, well, they're a very chatty breed. And as we've gone through and retrained, it's like, you know what? The chatting goes away because now they're confident. They now know where they're going. So not only do they get the right spot, but are they showing any stress signs? Does your terrier's nose hit the ground and start sniffing? Does your northern dog start to sing a song? Does your hunting dog run off and go for the squirrels and say, never mind, I'm not playing with you? You can see anything, go, oh, that dog's just blowing me off. They're not blowing you off. They're saying, I don't know what to do. And I think that's where we really hit it in our area. What we saw with the repositioning is we saw the dogs break down. They knew they weren't getting it right because you kept giving them cues. They weren't up for it. They're not. When we get to advanced and masters balls in order, where we often have to move the dogs because they're not in the right place, we realized that we were getting the same breakdown. The dogs were not accustomed to being moved so much, so they knew something was wrong. Or they might, when we do all that repositioning, they also know, you know what, especially with our, the novice, even intermediate dogs, they know they're supposed to push the ball, and we're not letting them. We just keep trying to fix them, and then their stress goes up. So not only is it the wrong spot, do we want to go make it easier, but also we're seeing those stress signs that says, man, this dog's not confident. They're not there yet. So better to get it right. And I definitely saw it. I at one point had my Mickey broke down like crazy. He's like, I don't know what you want. He just went around. I sent him out, and he did a big dance out there without me saying a thing. I mean, he literally just went out and went dancing, and went and walked off. I don't know what you want.
Well, just to chime in a little bit. So I think there's a few things, and only because I've had to switch fields a lot in this past like 6 months. So I go from the inside to the outside. Now you got more balls, and you're adding distance. And now I'm going from grass to lower southern grass. So there's a lot of things going on there. And I think a lot of people and the balls are going over when you add distance or going over. So I think that the dog is looking for a clear cue. So they're automatically, and it's not just, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's just a herding thing, but I've watched enough. I've been watching the videos just to see if is that behavior, specific to herding, or is that, are they looking for a clear signal? So I think there becomes a difficulty of seeing what the owner or the handler is doing. There's also this thing of just like, well, when I push, there's the resistance on different surfaces is really an issue. So I've tried different things where I'm just picking off the ball. Is that easier? He likes that better. So I think there's a lot of things going on, and I see a lot of people, they're playing with balls that are clearly where the dog is really looking. They can't see. I don't think they can really see. I put myself in that. I'm like, and I videoed enough, like right behind the ball, and not just from the side, that they're just like looking over. They can't see, so they kind of go off to the side, and then they hit the right or the left ball. So I think there's more to it than just. Our Bodie and Pappy have both been in that position, and in a sit say when we had the 3-2-1, they've been there, but they've automatically. And yeah, I probably maybe I go a little bit to this side or this side, but I think there's more. There's a lot going on there, so we have to. It's not. And I agree with Chris. Like, there's not like this specific like what can you do to correct that. There is, see if the dog is struggling. Maybe the weight is too much, or do you need to maybe we need to spread the balls out a little much and then bring them back together. Because I went from Bodie was almost like 100%, and so was Pappy with the point when I was just doing the standard. But now with balls in order. I don't know, like it seems very I think there's a lot going on. They're looking for a signal, can't see it anymore. So there's a lot. And maybe some dogs just don't like that split, like that. Maybe they like that. Is it better to say go away and pick that off and then go back? But I think that split, I mean, I know when I had my students, they hated hitting that point ball. And so we usually just took the penalty. There is something, I don't know that if it's helping with the training, but I think there's a lot going more than, because you could put that in the back, and the dog will be in position from both angles. Like you have it videoed, and the dog is perfect. So is it a hand, or are we just a little off by our hand signals? Do they just hate pushing through that?
Pushing the point ball is a whole nother topic. Maybe we should do that another month. That's a great idea.
Right. You betcha, because that's definitely an issue.
The point ball position, I think most of my students had it. I know I've had it with my dog. It's continuing once you say, but okay, well, this one makes more sense because it's closer, or for whatever reason they're doing, like you said with Mickey, they start doing this, and maybe that's a herding thing, or just like the fact of driving through the surface might just be just like, oh, well, it's easier, I'll just pick this one off and go back, but that when we had that 3-second rule and that's it, most of the dogs I had were very precisely behind that ball, but
that was also at the lower levels and
right.
with, yeah,
But it's still at that level, even at novice, they not rarely, but a lot of times they wouldn't hit that point ball, even though that position was there. So I'm just saying that personally, I don't know exactly what it is that, if you have to build a confidence of either pushing through or picking off, if you have to reinforce that more than the position itself. I don't think, because
I definitely think that can be an issue. There are dogs that are not comfortable pushing all the way through. For the most part, most of my students we've seen, if they line up correctly behind the ball, they will tend to hit the point ball. Rarely do they not hit it. Now they may pick it off, they might push it through, but usually they don't miss the point ball. So definitely when they seem lined up, but then they're still missing. You're right on. We need to look at why is that happening.
yeah.
I think
What
I have
else
an
could be playing
idea.
in?
What's that, Amanda?
I think I have an idea.
Okay.
Dogs love patterns. And because we changed that 3-second rule, you've broken their pattern and they're a little PO'd.
Yes. Because I stopped making him do it. Yeah, you are right about that. I'm just like, woo,
He's like, I knew my job. Now you're telling me I'm doing my job wrong. What the heck, lady?
no, that's
Yeah, and especially for anybody who had to hold that 3-second rule, Mickey was overjoyed. I mean, it's like, no, you will still wait a second before you push that ball. But he was pretty much, yeah, great, got rid of that nonsense. But there are other dogs who's like, excuse me, I learned to wait. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So now I think you gotta untrain it. So instead of waiting the 3 seconds, wait 2 seconds, reward that.
Right.
Have them wait for 1 second, reward that, do a half a second, kind of like back it back down until he's like, oh, go and get it now.
Right. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. If the dog has learned a long one, we've got to break it down. No, you can push a lot sooner. Really, you can.
So now I have a question. So you took away the that you had to wait 3 seconds, but can you wait?
yeah.
If you want to get your dog settled,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I have to work. Mine are too chill, but some of my students are pretty excited, and making them wait a second or two kind of gets them back in the moment where they can push correctly.
right.
You betcha. You betcha. And that's some of them where I've seen where they can be lined up and they'll still miss. They're the ones. We've got a couple that practically vibrate with excitement, and you release them and you just don't know where they're gonna go. So settling them down a little bit does help us get the point ball.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm glad, Amanda, you brought that up, because like that, I think that was part of my just like, oh, cool, we don't have to do that anymore. So I was trying to like build up speed. So I've actually added more time, because and it's a lot of this is curiosity just of my own training. I'm just like, let's just see, like, can I just send them out and push? But the videos I have taken was, let's just go back to that 3 seconds and just sit there for a little bit. He has
Gotten better. Great.
If I really was to go back, but like more than likely, yeah, there's a memory there that, yeah, well, maybe I trained him for a year to sit there and taking that away.
Yeah.
No, there is.
And I know when we first came out with that
point, because there is that, consistency thing, and you're adding a lot of different cues. And
when we first made that change, which now seems like it was so long ago.
Yes.
But when wasn't 6 months, 7 months, I don't know. When we first made that change, there were a lot of humans that were concerned about how the game would be played, that everybody was just running out, there wouldn't be any weights anywhere. And it's like, I still train my dog to sit and wait behind that point ball, because as Balls in Order came out, by golly, I have to stop behind everything before he pushes, because I need a chance. I want him to think it's okay to stop, because I might have to redirect him. So I don't want my dog thinking that the whole game is just run out, push, run out, push, run out, push. Because then when I need to move him, if I have to stop him and change him, he's not happy. He's very worried. So I've kept all that stopping business. It just might not be 3 seconds. So,
Right.
So yeah, we don't see, there was definitely people concerned that, oh my gosh, it's going to become a free-for-all. No, certainly that's not what we're seeing on the videos. It's everybody didn't release and become free-for-all, because Balls in Order pulled them back in. All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about, like this particular part of it? All right. Let's hit the next one. All right. Using a special cue. There's some of us who are using a specific cue when we send them out on that initial send for the point ball. And it's different from when the balls are scattered. It's the only time we are using that cue. And it's, and why are we doing that? Mostly because very clear information for the dog. The dog, we tend to think, well, we walk out on the field and that formation is there. It's really solid. And so the dog knows. I'll say some dogs know. Some dogs are pick it up and go, yep, I got it. I know what we do. But for some dogs, they're not as confident. So, having that very clear information that when I say away and center, my dog is 100% clear that he is going to go out and he's going to find that place and he's going to stop and wait. And he's going to wait for that release to push. And he knows I'm not going to redirect him. He's going to just go there and get it. Versus the rest of the time when I send him out, he may go to a ball, I may stop him, and I may have to move him somewhere else, pull him in, send him out, go to a different ball, whatever. So it's definitely a different expectation. And we went to that as a group, as a way of doing it here, because we had a number of us that got to the level where we were playing Balls in Order with 6 and 8 balls. And that's when we saw things start to really get confusing for dogs too, because now they have 6 or 8 balls, 9 balls. Only one of them do they have to really find a really precise ball on their own based on what's out there. The rest of them, they run out. Okay, well, they might have to move somewhere else. It's a lot more activity. And so we found it reduced a lot of stress for some of the dogs. So, and I have to say, not every dog needs it, but we found a bunch of dogs in our area. It really helped take the stress down for them. So, I know we're doing a lot of the dogs here that way. I don't know, Monica, Carolyn, where are you on that?
Well, I because JoJo was completely broken down, I followed your advice and started retraining with a specific cue, brought back the mat, started with doing it from 5 feet, shaping it really clearly, and working it through up to, 15, 20, 25 feet, first at the novice, and then formation. And the one thing it's been fabulous. I can totally see, because there's been a couple of mistakes I've made, and then she starts eating grass again. And I'm like, oh, what happened to that dog that was no barking, no fussing, just like ran right out to the point ball and knew just what she wanted? And one of the things I did that confused her was the first time that I walked into the field with her on leash and took off the leash and then gave her the center, my point ball cue. And she just looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, and I was at maximum distance at that point. And I changed the walking on part of it. I added the walking on without shortening the distance or bringing back the mat. And that I really learned something from that. What I learned, well, of course, splitting, not lumping, and going, making it easier when you make something else harder, but also that the point ball, part of the point ball cue is really walking on the field. Mm-hmm. So I'm in watching my body language and trying to be consistent for her, so she knows exactly this, had no question about what she's supposed to do this time, is I've really gotten clear on, all right, I'm going to walk in the field the same way every time. I'm going to, take a turn, have her sit, say, we are ready, and then take off the leash. And then I turn to the point ball and I look at the point ball and I say center. And so it's that turning away from her where she's waiting for cue and turning toward the point ball is part of my cue. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, she's blasting off to the point ball now at 25 feet with no problem, with no mat and no grass eating. So
and no grass eating. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm feeling good about that.
And it's, I keep, as I've been going through, we haven't had a live in-person trial yet, but I keep thinking from the standpoint of, we all do a lot of things because we know we're only video trialing, not to downplay video trialing. Mm-mm. But if it was a live trial, you would have paid your $20 or whatever for your one chance to walk out and take off a leash and say, ready? Yes, I'm ready. And go. And your dog stands there, or your dog goes out and barks at you,
or eats grass.
And you're like, there went $20. And I don't get to start over, and like I do with my videos. And so you really want, I've tried to keep in mind, once I started thinking about it, it's like, I want to have a live trial, and I don't want us to all fail because the first time we walked out, the dog's like, I do that on the second time? Maybe it's the third time. I don't really know. And so, or you don't want to NQ right off the bat because the dog decides to go pee in the grass. So
it's fine.
No, but it's a good point. And so, like, I've been working with masters with boating, but I video every one because, like, okay, if this was a real trial, so like he goes out and he initially barks. The second set, he's right out there. And he may not hit point, but then he goes back and he brings everyone in, like, we're like, whatever it is, he has like some juju about. But, I think that's why we started to make that rule, because the point is to bring the point ball in first. If you accidentally hit, like, you can't break the initial send, you want that curve, but if the dog, because it seems fairly common across the board that they don't always hit, even if they're center, they don't bring. But we may, at least when we were making that rule, my point was that, like, sometimes they're going to hit that offside ball, but if you're in little live trial, you're automatically, just because that one thing, going to be NQ'd. So here's your chance to redirect, go back to that, call off the ball and bring in the point ball. The point is to bring in that correct ball. So I didn't harp a lot on that, and maybe that's where, so now he doesn't drive that point ball in as hard. But as long as you can redirect back, and yeah, you're going to get that. We used to get the 10-second penalty. You don't anymore, but do I really care? No. But do I want to? Yes, initially it would make things easier if you just knew, yeah, drive that first one in. But
Yep.
for whatever reason, in his eyes, he likes things broken up, and then he goes and does that. And maybe it's a thing. There's a thing with herding braids that they don't like to split. They like to circle, or ideally, yes. I'm not going to stop trying to train that, and maybe I have to go back to the 3-second assiste. But for me, that rule was because, yeah, sometimes exactly. And I'm thinking of, eventually we want these to be live trials. Because that dog doesn't push that point ball first, is he automatically NQ'd or penalized? No, as long as you can redirect him and bring him back to it, I think that's okay. But
Right.
right.
And the same with,
So,
the Chelsea that spins or whatever. That's
yes, yeah, that's why we kind of got rid of that whole, like, if he looks back, because at a lot, we all know, if we've been in dog sports, that things happen, the intact male that's in front of you, or the breeze that came in. There's going to be things that when you send your dog out are going to be
right.
so,
Or the stress that
so
you
yeah,
just
you don't want to
maybe
be
waste.
NQ'd right off the bat over
Right.
something, one little thing where your dog
Right.
is like solid with anything else, or
Right.
but yeah,
Well,
I think there's a lot going. There's more than just sending them to a point, because and even my students, they all kind of, and maybe that it comes down to the cues and what hand are you using. But I think in the dog's mind, I mean, some people I see with these videos, the ball is just like there's that ball size issue, and
right.
I mean, more.
I think
Sorry.
one of the things we want to do is, and through the training, because I always, in a live trial, if we suddenly go to a live trial, there's going to be presumably strange dogs. There's going to be a lot more stress. There's going to be that I only get one shot, not as many as I need. Everybody's watching me. I've done all kinds of videos in my backyard, but now there's people watching me. There's my stress of, did I just waste $20, $25 to get this opportunity? There's there's all kinds of new stress, and of course the dog knows it. So the better the more confidence we've got going in.
Yeah, you're right.
We'll hear, I hear it periodically, oh, we should reduce the permitted time for the runs. And all I can say is, no way, because we have a live trial. I don't care if everybody's turning in runs on videos that are half of the allowed time. We have a live trial, they'll go longer. All those dogs who are bringing those balls straight in are suddenly going to find all kinds of things to do otherwise. So and I just, if we have point ball issues without that stress, when we add that stress, by golly, I know some of the dogs in my group, they're not going to go get that point ball at all. They're just going to go, nope, I'm not playing that day. So with as much confidence as possible. So when it breaks down, maybe it won't be too far. All right, so we ready to go on?
So Monica, I know, because JoJo is like, I mean, he's like lightning, but she has the point ball issue, right?
Right. Well, so for her, the issue is not pushing through the formation like you were talking about. The only issue is if she's right behind the point ball, then she's fine. The problem was the
getting out.
Even well, the problem was stopping and eating grass for 5 minutes before she'd push the point ball. Really, that was the issue. And and that was with the like the triangle formation where you've got point ball and then 2 balls. In the advanced standard game formation with point ball and 3 balls, she would not go to point. She would come to the 1 row up. And we haven't even revisited that yet, but I am confident after what I've gone through with bringing back the mat and using this system, I'm confident that I'll be able to shape her to confidently go out to that formation.
You know where you're going.
I know where I'm going.
And that's always a good feeling too for the trainer, handler, trainer, whatever, everyone. You know what you're going to do, so makes you more confident. All right, adding distance. We all hit this sooner or later. It just depends on when we're going to hit it. Adding distance. First thing, add your distance between you and the formation when the dog is consistently and confidently hitting that point ball position with 1 cue. If they're not finding that point ball position and you start adding distance, that point ball position won't get better. It'll probably get worse. So wait until you've got, you're not seeing the stress signals. Your dog is pretty much always hitting that position you want. Add your distance gradually. I have certainly made the mistake. I've watched students make the mistake. We get overconfident and we're not really thinking, we think, I just moved back a little. From the sidelines, I'm going, no, you moved back 10 feet. That's not a little. So, I've had students who are like, oh, yeah, I just moved back a step. And I'm like, well, that was one monster step that you just took. When I'm on turf, I'll put down tape and go, look, instead of 10 feet, how about 2 feet or 5 feet? Let's break it down and add that distance gradually. If you've got that confident position and things start to go wrong, reduce that distance back down. Make it easier again, get them back on that position. And then one of the things that I know I often hit resistance on is people are afraid to bring back that mat. I had the dog off the mat. I don't want to bring it back. I bring the mat back all the time. Every time I've made some sort of change and that dog, if the dog for some reason goes, that's too big of a change, then clearly I need to get that mat back. So I will go and no matter what formation I'm on, I will start close with the mat. I will build distance as far as whatever I need with the mat there. Then I'll go back in close and I'll take the mat away and I'll build the distance again without the mat. And if the dog gets confused, I'll come in closer. And if that isn't enough, I'll put the mat back again, knowing that somewhere I lumped too much for that dog and I've got to get it back on target. So, that's kind of, I don't know, for me, and I think Monica and Carolyn, I think we're in the, we're working the same boat there, I think. That's just kind of our process for how we add distance to the formation. Monica and Carolyn, if you've got.
No, that covers it.
Okay, I know we kind of we've talked off and on, so I think
No, I'd rather hear from it, but the mat, at least what I'm finding, and like I said, because this is all learning, I think for all of us at this point, when you get to, there's not much masters out there as far as Treibball goes. So working at that, when you start building that, to the reintroduce of the mat, like I think like getting to point ball position and pushing at the position is a completely different, at least what I'm finding, and I'm just playing with it. And I try to go back with by students, but it's been a problem. So I would like to, I think we just need more information from different breeds and different dogs to see like what, if it is just the stress of pushing the formation. Is it the balls now become, they can't see the handler anymore? Is it because there was one point I was like at 90% with both of them, but then I think we've all hit like this, it just went to hell kind of thing with this. They're not hitting the point ball, even though they're going in point position. So I think point position and hitting the point,
But we're going to do that as another topic, right? Because this is, so we can
Mhm.
split it we need to split it for
Okay.
ourselves also, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if they can't even find,
getting to
yeah, if they
point,
can't
I am
find
with you. The mat was 100% as how you do it, and I use go to point, and they're there. Whether they're going to push it or not, that's another. You're right. It's a
Right.
separate
Yeah.
subject, but yeah.
Yeah.
And behinds, whether it's behind the MLS line or it's right behind, but yeah.
Right. But yeah, that's, I mean, that's another one I found though too, is I'll have somebody, they've got it. Their dog's
Yeah.
hitting the point position, and all of a sudden they go from 15 feet to 25 feet, and the dog's missing. And it's like, step it back in, break it down a little more for that dog. Don't go too fast, because they definitely. I'm working on something else with Mickey, but it's the same thing. I'm trying to add distance, and I was literally, I got to 10, 15, I was about 15 feet from the ball, and I started trying to do the send, and he broke down. I had to step it in, and I was literally stepping it back 1 foot at a time to build that distance. Or all of a sudden, he'd just go off and do something else,
Yeah.
even though he'd been really confident. It's like, okay, you told me you can't go that fast, so we had to break it down a little slower for him.
so if they're breaking down, bring them in closer first thing. That's,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
yep.
I very much I'm very much
Make it clear to the
yeah.
Yeah.
Make
Yeah.
it clear to the dog.
Yeah.
The dog doesn't do it. I'm really, it's like,
Yeah.
maybe twice, and I'm thinking I've got to change something.
Yeah.
Something about the picture's wrong. The last thing I want is my dog repeatedly practicing doing something the wrong way. Practice makes perfect, and if we practice it the wrong way, then what we've done is we've got a perfect wrong way, and can't be having that.
Yeah.
So don't keep going if it's not going right.
Well, I mean, just and for the new people that are like I think it's I think when I with Treibball, like it is consistent in some ways, because like it's not like agility or scent work where things are changing. You're always going to have this formation, but it is different. There are so many factors that are going into it that, and I'm guilty of it myself, and that's why I'm being full disclosure that I'm not taking that, this wind came and it shifted everything to the left here, and he's just not into it today, and we've all been to trials that it's just not going to work. So I think with video tagging quickly, you just assume like they're going to do it. Well, that's not always the case either. But as far as like going to point, I was thinking he got it because they and both of them, they got it. But when you really start to look at, I mean, it could just be a slight thing shifted this way, or, but you have to, I think that's something that has to just, it depends. It really does depend on the dog. And I know like some students, I'm just like, oh, let's just, so take the 10-second penalty and go back. And that was maybe we had the right approach, but because they just were struggling so bad, but they were good with the rest of the game. But it's like a short line stay or anything. Like you don't want to start off on a bad foot. And I think Chris was right, is that you get into bad habits. But that it is a lot of training to do different formations. It's a lot of the send out. Unlike some dog, like I found that the retrievers and some breeds just don't want to go away from the owner without checking in when they get to that first layer of, right? Even they don't want to go past that first triangle, right?
Right, but it comes down to that confidence, Carolyn, that if you've trained the confidence at closer distances and increase the distance gradually as enough for that dog, then you'll know that you've done that if they're 100% consistently hitting that point position. So
one that it was just as we were talking and something Carolyn said, it triggered it. I know some of us where we train, we're in the same place, the field's set up the same way every time, and so we tend to train at that very location, that very place. Exactly. Scenario I'm in, where we have two different buildings. We've actually worked and filmed, besides people's backyards, I'm not counting those, in 4 different locations. And even within class, sometimes the way we have the formation and the distance, we rotate that around so that it's not always the same. So we might flip it end for end in the building, or instead of working at the north end of the building, we have one very large building. Instead of working on the north end of the building, we might work on the south end of the building. So we've taken to really changing it up, not just, and every time we do that, we expect things like the distance to fall back down again. We expect that we might have to bring the mat out again because the dog says, this isn't how we did it before. So things like that.
I think that Chris, that's like the greatest point, is that when that just the slightest scenario, and I got into that too, because we're in the same building and we're set up the same all the time, and now that I myself shifted, and now I can see it more from like my students' perspective, because the dogs aren't there all the time. Just that slightest shift, and I actually have, because I was trying to find the best way on the field, is just that change. If he wasn't used to it, he would be all like, what the hell is a send out? And it was just because he wasn't used to that. So that, as far as like, as training dogs going forward for live trials, is that's something that I think is very important that maybe we didn't touch on before, is just you should maybe train at that 10-foot level with the 3 balls and be like, here, do it from here, do it from this angle. But that might be more like the most important factor than
really good
just
point.
It from different places. So
what should we get to our last slide though? It's already 5.
Yeah, I'm like moving quickly.
All right.
So
you hear from everybody.
I'm gonna move quickly.
Sorry, we're all working through this ourselves. It's a group effort.
So one thing is many formations. We have a lot of formations. So one thing is, I don't take a dog who's just now starting to work on the 3-ball triangle. I don't jump them right up and also work the 9-ball diamond of balls in order. But I do think every time that the initial formation changes, I expect to have to train the dog to find that point ball position again. So I consider that something that we need to, it's shocking. And I think a lot of people find they have a big difference when they go from that intermediate 6 to that advanced 8. That's a lot of times where people have a breakdown because that advanced 8 really changes what that looks like to the dog. So expect when the formation changes, you're going to go back to the square one and train them where that point ball position is again. Build gradually. Don't jump from 3 balls to 9 balls. Even things like Carolyn is brushing against that again, that if I've only been pushing 3 balls, I am sure not ready to push a point ball through 9 balls. So think in terms of that, build gradually. And again, return to using that mat each time you introduce a new formation. So it's bring it back. It's not the end of the world to have to bring that mat back. All right, and then I know kind of glossing, but we've kind of hit those things anyway. The last thing, do you document? If you document your training, it helps you to figure out when it's time to advance. It helps prevent you from moving too fast. Forces reality instead of guessing because you have to write something down. And it relieves people like me from having to remember. Along that lines, and I think I can pull this up. I'm going to try to switch out of this. Monica developed, and I'm going to see if I can get this.
Let's say it's in draft form.
It's in draft form, but the idea is, if I can get this to pull up nicely, she came up with a, this will do it.
It's there.
Is it there? Is that big enough?
Yeah.
Switch again, real quick. I think this will be big enough to see. I'm acting like I'm printing.
No, it's smaller.
Basically, it's smaller. All right, let's go back.
Just cancel that, and it should be big enough, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Oops. Who is that?
So basically, a page that she can print off. She can keep track of how she is. Monica, I'll let you talk to build this up.
Yeah, so this is, it might make sense to you all pretty easily. I changed some things already on my version, but starting at 2 feet, so super close, 2 feet from that row. And then along the left-hand column would be the different formations. So standard, novice balls in order. And then the 1/3 is the advanced setup, but just with 4 balls. And I think that makes a really big difference to start with that before you would then go to the advanced where you've got the 8 balls. And then the intermediate with 6 balls, and then the intermediate balls in order is a different formation too. So I haven't got the advanced on here because this was set up for my advanced students who that's so far away that we're not going to worry about that. And so across the right, across the top, is just is going, so the first 3 columns are using kind of a clock system for shaping. So getting so that your dog will go all the way from your side. And then after that, then we add the cue, then we start adding distance. Then we do the whole thing over again with no mat. Then we do the whole thing over walking in, and then we do it all over again, walking in with no mat. And so I've actually got my students working on more than 1 row at a time. So they're doing both right now, both the standard novice and the novice balls in order. And that's my plan is that they'll, be starting the 1 and 3 combination pretty quickly. So so that they haven't got years and years and years of only seeing 3 balls. Only seeing 2 balls in the second row because of that's what happened to me. So I want to avoid that. So so that's kind of roughly what that is.
Yeah, and your next one down is the scattered balls. So, can the dog retrieve, if there's 2 balls on the field, can they retrieve 2 balls with a treat at each ball? Can they skip a treat in between? Can they handle 3 balls, 4 with them scattered? And the no directionals means you're not sending them out to 1 ball and then switching them to the others. Just, hey, I
Right.
got that many balls out there.
I try to have them, I have my students like think about what ball they're sending them to them and notice whether the dog actually does it, and then ask themselves why the dog didn't. But not redirecting them during that stage. Yeah. But we should go back to point ball and see if anybody wants to bring in any specific questions. We did a lot of talking. It's already overtime. This was a big topic. You were right, Chris.
We left a lot of things.
Hope we didn't confuse more people than we helped. But it is, I think we're, as a relatively new sport, I think there's a lot to hammer out. So it's nice. It would be nice to hear from everybody else if they're having struggles or what they're finding. Linda, Brenda, Mary, Amanda.
Well, I think I'm so new to this that this is all good information.
Okay, good. Good. That's all good.
That's good.
I'm scaring you away. So, but just so you know, there is that. I don't know. It's like we have one size fit. There really is no one size fit all. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. All we can do is give advice, right? So, like, here are our struggles.
I think the one advantage that I have with Quinn is that we have done agility, so he's used to a trial situation with lots of dogs, lots of people, lots of distractions.
Yeah.
So I think a live trial is not as big an issue for us, only because he's got that kind of under his belt.
Yeah, that's a big part.
I think that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I have to say, quite a few of my students, they were really retired agility dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were still surprised when we changed from one building to the other, how big a change that was for the dog. Even though these were solid old agility dogs that have been a lot of places.
Right, we can go here.
Yeah, and we still saw, even though these were solid agility trainers and handlers, we saw dogs react to the stress of just videoing. It's like, whoa, there's not even a crowd here
right now. Wow. We just play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe what we need to do is have fun runs first.
Yes. Fun runs.
The valid that.
Yeah.
Or change your
Monica,
trialing.
to your point earlier is that you're doing, like, I have now, like, I just go out there and I'll just do the whole leash off. I'm spending more time on just the whole taking the leash off, because he had my particular have the ring stress. They have ring stress. Just don't like being in different places, and because now I'm kind of forced to have to go, well, here we're going to do this here, but there is something to it. They're just like, well, when you take that leash off, something else is happening. And if I just automatically put the camera on or something, then like something's really happening. So there is that part, but I think that combination with changing up, like, and especially if you're a trainer and you always have that ring set up the same way, it's just like, well, that's different, and the dog senses that it's different. Things smell different. So yeah, I think that is something that is not taught across the field in dog sports. That's not talked about enough. That, like, oh, well, the dog is solid when we practice at home. Well, yeah, guess what? This is in your home. And that breeze just came in, and here's something that happened a week ago. Anyway, that's more than right. But there is, I think that just changing that position alone when you're practicing with your two, even in my backyard, you're right. If I put the point ball in it over here versus where I usually put it because that's the best distance, or even going from my driveway to my backyard is huge. It's huge to both the dogs. It's different. So I think change of scenery,
Inside versus outside.
inside versus outside, grassland.
We do for all my dogs that they train at home outside in the grass and snow and whatever. And we had an event at somebody's outdoor training facility. It was a fun run, but we were videoing. We ran it like kind of like a trial and videoed runs. And I'm not sure we got a single good run because about halfway through, it turned into a pee fest. It was a riot in its own sad way. But the dogs were like, "This is not my grass. Look at theirs. These are not my squirrels over there in the trees." And it was a funny, sad day.
No, but I mean if we're talking about like if you have this set up and you can do it in the backyard, great. But the reality of doing all this, because I can be at masters maybe at this field now, but then I can go back to novice in this field, and it's like you never made me do this here, Mom. So there is that. So I can't.
Those aren't my balls.
Yeah, what are my balls doing in this spot? So and plus you bring your own equipment, so there's like a whole different. Yeah, I mean again, we're going on to different topics of
another
and
day.
having your students when your students or if your students peed on another ball, then it's. But
yeah.
So does anyone else have any point ball issues they want to bring up? Brenda, we never heard. We never heard from. Let's give them a chance, and then we should sign off. Brenda, did you want to say something? Do you have a microphone? We never heard from you. You came in late. Well, hi, Brenda.
It's Kelly. I see Kelly too.
And Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Let's see. We heard a little from Linda. How about Amanda? Did you have anything to add, or Harriet?
I can always add.
Please.
I was gonna say for the new people, train this, and maybe it's a good reminder for us anyway that's had more experience. Train it like you're training your puppy to have good manners. So if you can, bring your target mat, go to your local dog food store, go to the bank, send them to the mat, see if they'll do it. Get them like lots of exposure, because that's the only way you're gonna proof the behavior.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was gonna say, because I'm starting up teaching my beginning agility class, and I'm rewriting down the key points I want to do with them, because I'm always tweaking my what I want to do. And I had a really good refresher on the 3Ds. So there's lots of articles out there about that, and that's specifically duration, distance, and distraction. And that was a really great refresher for me, because I do them anyway, but to put them into contextual thing to read, I'm like, oh, I do that stuff. Why don't I talk about it? But
I know.
It was a really nice thing.
That's where we're putting the check, right? Yeah. No, yeah.
And then so my last little thought was about so if we do a live competition and like scent work, that key scent box at the end of one of the classes is going to have the dog's special sauce all over it. So if we're not cleaning balls between dog runs, they're going to have the special sauce all over them, and you're going to get a couple. I'll go, I want to push this. I'm going to smell it for a
Yeah.
while. Maybe I'll pee on it a little bit too. If someone else
Oh, yeah.
no.
Yep.
Yeah. And the reality of,
The truth.
yeah, that's true. And I'm so glad we're actually discussing it, because like the reality of what happens when another person touches, or another dog sniffs this, or a treat was here before in this situation, or before a class. I mean, that throws
Yeah.
more than, you can train the crap out of point ball, but if, the puppy class before, God forbid, dropped a sliver of hot dog. Well, I remember the hot dog was there the last time, so then it's takes. So I think that is something that has to be also taken in mind, as far as like you get pissed off, you're like, this. You should go to point.
And the dogs are saying it's time for us to go. It's 5:20, you guys.
We always got to bring it down to foundations.
Yep. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.